Colleagues, I want to correct a statement I made, the citation. I want to make sure everyone is clear about the actual rule. Again, Mason's Manual of Legislative Procedure, I said it was section 112, it's actually section 110, and I'm going to read the brief paragraph. To guard against the appearance of personalities in debate, it has long been the rule in legislative bodies that no member should refer to another by name in debate. The other member should be described by district, by seat, as the member who last spoke, or by describing the member in some other manner. Again, that's Chapter 12, Conduct of Debate, Section 110. Under privileges of the floor, members. Under privileges of the floor, we've been joined this past week by a number of former members of the legislature. In the rear of the chambers today is former Assemblywoman Helen Thompson. Again, under privileges of the floor, we recognize Senator Nielsen at Senator De Leon's desk. Senator Nielsen.
Madam President, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, we have a family here today with us who have come home for today. It is the family of former State Senator Bill Campbell, long serving in both the State Assembly and the State and the Senate, and he served for a number of years as the Senate Minority Leader. Senator Campbell was the first to occupy the Republican leader's office on this side of the Capitol building. And he was one who got it off to a good start, for he was such a man steeped in dignity and the respect of this institution. As he served as our leader here, the Republican leader, working with then Senator David Roberti, there were many challenges. I remember one budget that was $1.5 billion in the red. Now, when we have looked at some $45 billion, that's not much, but I'll tell you then it was huge. And Senator Campbell was an able leader stewarding us through those tough times. He was a pioneer in sunset legislation, accepting that some things in government did not have to go on forever. He was a valiant warrior to balance the budget, not let taxes get out of hand. But the most distinguishing qualities of Bill Campbell was the dignity that he brought to this institution and the family feelings that he expressed were deeply bound in his religious faith, which he lived and practiced every day. He left the State Senate to become the head of the California Manufacturers and Technology Association. And for almost a decade, ably led that organization, helping promote jobs, career tech education, opportunity. And he really advanced that organization to the fore of leaders of business in the state of California. On your behalf, it's my privilege to present to the family a Senate resolution commending the fine history and legend of Bill Campbell. His wife, Margene, is here with us today, a great friend, and again, one who returns to her home. Senator Huff has consented to take us up to that office that he first occupied a little bit later. With him is his brother Clifford Campbell, daughter Michelle, her husband Gary, daughter Stephanie, her husband Alan. And one of the true great legacies of Senator Bill Campbell, 14 grandchildren and 5 great-grandchildren here with us to live his legacy. We recognize, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, one of our own here today, a friend, one who truly is known and dignified the title, State Senator. Margene?
To the Campbell family, we welcome you home. Thank you, Senator Nielsen, and thank you to the Campbell family for being with us today. Back to motions and resolutions. Measures withdrawn and re-referred to committee without objection. SB 681 will be withdrawn from second reading and re-referred to the Committee on Rules. Let's move to file item 43, and colleagues, we will be taking up a time certain, a measure at 11 o'clock. So, Senator Hernandez, are you prepared to proceed on this item? Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Please read.
Senate Bill 33 by Senator Hernandez, an act relating to Medi-Cal.
Senator Hernandez.
Thank you, Madam President and members. When I first heard the term estate recovery, I had no clue what it was. So it was during a town hall that we had where we were trying to sign up individuals for Medi-Cal or to talk about the Affordable Care Act, and we were trying to get individuals with insurance. So there was a question in the audience, and a woman said that she was concerned that if she signs up for Medi-Cal that she was going to lose her house. So I didn't know what that meant, and I said, no, that's not going to happen. And then my staff kind of pulled me aside and said, yeah, there's this thing in California called estate recovery, and it's possible. I said, well, let me look into it, ma'am, and I'll get back to you. So here's what an estate recovery is. The federal government has a minimum requirement that if there's what's called long-term care, and if you're a Medi-Cal recipient, that they can go after assets that the individual has upon death. And long-term care would be like, you know, in the hospitalization, et cetera, or, you know, nursing home. But California does something a little different. They go above and beyond what the federal government requires. So they go after anything that's above and beyond. So in this particular case, if you sign up for Medi-Cal, and even if you don't use any of the services, and you should pass, even the premiums that are collected over those years, they can go after and seize the assets of the family. So here's where my concern is. We now have new guidelines for an individual to be eligible for Medi-Cal. They've gone up from 100 to 138% of poverty level. So let's say you're that person at 138% of poverty level where you are required to have Medi-Cal, but yet you've worked your entire life, paid off your home, you don't use that insurance, and then you pass, and then all of that asset is going to be seized by the state of California. However, if you're above 138% of poverty level and you go to Covered California and you get a subsidy, the state of California, the federal government's not going to go after that subsidy. It's only a matter of just going into the next bracket. And no other social program we have, whether it's food stamps, et cetera, are we required to go after any of those assets. So I believe what we should do is remove those additional barriers for individuals, bring it down to what the federal level is, as well as this bill will also make it easier for individuals to find out what Medi-Cal has spent on their behalf. So with that, members, I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Thank you, Senator Hernandez. Debate or discussion? Is there debate or discussion on this item? Seeing and hearing none, Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Allen. Aye. Anderson. Aye. Bates. Bell. Aye. Berryhill. Block. Aye. Canella. Aye. De Leon. Fuller. Gaines. Aye. Galgioni. Aye. Glazer. Aye. Hall. Aye. Hancock. Aye. Hernandez. Aye. Hertzberg. Aye. Hill. Aye. Wesso. Aye. Huff. Jackson. Aye. Lada. Leno. Leyva. Aye. Liu. Aye. McGuire. Aye. Mendoza. Aye. Mitchell. Aye. Monning. Aye. Morlock. Aye. Morrell. Aye. Wynn. Aye. Nielsen. Pan. Pavley. Aye. Roth. Aye. Runner. I Stone. I Vidak. I Wachowski. I Wolk. Wolk, aye.
Please call the absent members.
Bates. Aye. Berryhill. De Leon. Fuller. Huff. Lotta. Leno. Nilsson. Pant. Aye.
Ayes 33, no 0. That measure is adopted. File item 45, Senator Leyva, do you wish to take that matter up? Mr. Secretary, please read. File item 45, colleagues.
Thank you, Madam President.
Excuse me, we have to have the Secretary read it first. It's okay. File item 45.
Senate Bill 334 by Senator Leyva, an act relating to pupil health.
Thank you. Senator Leyva.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm just so excited to bring this to all of you today. Members, I rise to ask your support of SB 334. We have done a terrific job as a legislature in making sure that our children have healthier food in schools. We've done a great job of making sure they don't have access to soda machines at school, but we have not done a great job of making sure that the drinking water that they drink every day is clean. This bill will make sure that we test that water and make sure that these students have access to clean drinking water. We know that there are lead in the pipes. There's a system they use called flushing, where you turn on the drinking fountain or the water, let it run for 30 seconds, and then it's supposed to get the lead out, so to speak. I know as a mother, I would not feel comfortable having my children drink water that had lead and supposedly had been flushed out. We have no opposition to this bill, and I strongly encourage an aye vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Leyva. Debate or discussion? Is there any debate or discussion? Senator Allen.
Question for the author.
Without objection.
It was my understanding that CSBA has come out with an opposed unless amended. Is the California School Board Association, you said there's no opposition. Can you clarify?
Let me see. I did not think there was any opposition. I stand corrected. Apparently there is opposition.
Okay.
I guess what I should have said is I wish there was no opposition to this bill.
Oh, don't we all? Any questions or comments? All right. Senator Morlock. This is under debate or discussion. Senator Morlock.
Thank you, Madam President. I just have a question for the author.
Question for the author?
A couple questions.
Senator, will you accept a question?
I would love another question.
All right, without objection, Senator Morlock.
I'm just curious if there's an ability to do a simple test to determine the amount of lead in the water. Is there a home test, or what did NBC do to determine the amount of lead in the water?
That will be under the Environmental Protection Agency. They will determine what kind of test will be done.
And I'm wondering if there is an issue, would it be, would the school district have the ability just to shut off the fountain and just hire sparklets for another water provider?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further debate or questions or discussions? Seeing and hearing none, Senator Leyva, would you like to close?
I would just urge an aye vote. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Leyva. All debate having ceased, Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Allen. Anderson. I Bates. I Bell. I Berryhill. I Block. I Canella. I De Leon. Fuller. I Gaines. I Galgiani. Glazer. I Hall. I Hancock. I Hernandez. I Hertzberg. I Hill. I Wesso. I Huff. I Jackson. I Lotta. Leno. Leyva. I Liu. I McGuire. I Mendoza. I Mitchell. I Monty. I Morlock. I Morrell. I Wynn. Nielsen.
It's going to cost them
Pan.
$20 to figure.
I. Pavley. I. Roth. I. Runner. I. Stone. I. Vidak. I. Wachowski. I. Wolk. Wolk, aye.
Please call the absent members.
Allen. I. De Leon. Galgiani. I. Lada. Leno. Wynn. I. Nielsen.
Ayes 36, no 0. The measure passes. File item 46, Senator McGuire. Mr. Secretary, please read.
Senate Bill 643 by Senator McGuire, an act relating to medical marijuana.
Senator McGuire.
Thank you so much, Madam President, and good morning to all of you. I would like to start by thanking all of colleagues here for their assistance on this important legislation as we've worked on it over the last 6 months. Since the voters of California originally passed Proposition 215 in 1996, medical marijuana cultivation and consumption has exploded, both here in the Golden State and across our great nation. Aside from local zoning regulations, this legal multi-billion-dollar industry is virtually unregulated in the great state of California. For 2 decades now, the state has allowed this industry to grow, for the most part unchecked. In our communities, our environment, and the public's health has been severely damaged, or it's at serious risk. The current drought has only made the urgency of this legislation more necessary than ever. Marijuana growers range from small family farm operations, many of whom have farmed for decades, who want to comply with state and local regulations, if we had any, to violent international crime organizations that must be eliminated from the business and have taken a strong hold in Northern California. Entire watersheds have been dewatered, all in the name of rogue grows. This past summer, compounded by our state's historic drought, the Eel and the Mattole rivers ran dry for the first time since written records have been kept, threatening wildlife, endangered fish species, in rural communities. Northern and Central California watersheds have been inundated with sediment and poisons, such as fertilizers and pesticides. In fact, marijuana grows are the #1 source of sediment and nutrient loads in Northern California rivers and streams. Rogue operators have clear-cut thousands of acres of California forests illegally, both on public and private lands, without regard for long-term impacts. They are creating for neighboring landowners downstream farms or endangered species. I know that all of us are well aware of the regulations, permits, and certificates and other processes that farmers and ranchers have to go through when growing row crops, nuts, grapes, raising cattle. But right now, there are no regulations or permits for marijuana farmers, and our environment is paying the price. And this has created an uneven playing field for those who have to comply to state standards, and our state's forests are being sacrificed, and rivers are literally running dry due to the state's impotent approach to regulating marijuana. The responsible grower groups are working with us, along with our partners at the Regional Water Board, to combat the situation, and are eager to comply with the same standards that all other ag producers are expected to follow. I will acknowledge there may be some in this chamber today that don't agree with the issue of medical marijuana. But the fact is this: the medical marijuana industry is legal due to the Compassionate Use Act passed by California voters through Prop 215. The intention has always been, 19 years ago, that the legislature would act to create the comprehensive regulatory framework for medical marijuana, but we've never done so. This has never happened, and now our communities and neighborhoods are paying the price. In the district that I represent, the city of Eureka has 6 times the violent crime rate. I think we will all agree, whether you are a marijuana cultivator or a county sheriff, Prop 215 created a patchwork of confusing local rules and land use regulations in hundreds of cities and counties across the state that conflict with each other. In fact, the U.S. Justice Department has made it clear that it expects states who allow for medical marijuana within its borders to have a robust system of regulation and enforcement or face federal involvement. Just yesterday, the U.S. House of Representatives passed legislation, bipartisan, endorsing the Justice Department's position. States that have medical marijuana laws need to have a strong regulatory framework in place. And this was endorsed by both Republicans and Democrats alike. Today, I hope, members, that we can finally act and create the statewide system that will put an end to our chaotic approach to this multi-billion-dollar industry. Today, that we can take action, Democrats and Republicans alike, and finally solve the problems that have been plaguing our state for decades. SB 643 is designed to specifically address the dangerous and concerning issues brought on by medical marijuana. It creates a statewide comprehensive program overseeing the medical marijuana industry, from general oversight, law enforcement, licensing, product content, to marketing, taxing, transporting, zoning, local control, resale, and labor regulation. All of these are more addressed in the legislation, none of which are currently addressed now because there are no state laws. The bill establishes the Office of the Medical Marijuana Regulation Division, and to address the concerns, and I really appreciate this, of the Business and Professions Committee and the incredible chairman from San Mateo. I want to thank the chairman from San Mateo for all of your work. We have placed the office under the Secretary of Business, Consumer Affairs and Housing in the Business Consumer Services Housing Agency under the supervision and control of the chief appointed by the governor, and subject to confirmation by the Senate Committee on Rules. And again, I really do want to thank the senator from San Mateo for all of his work on this. We provide the office with authority to issue, suspend, or revoke conditional licenses related to medical marijuana in the state and collect fees in connection with cultivation, manufacturing, transportation, storage, distribution, and sale. This bill also provides the office with the authority to create, issue, suspend, or revoke other licenses to protect patient health and the public to facilitate the regulation of medical marijuana. I'm going to fast forward, members, because I know we have a 11 o'clock time certain. Finally, it's going to be focused on transportation, focus on requiring product testing for medical marijuana prior to hitting consumers' hands. We need to focus on health and safety. Requires that all marijuana grown, produced, and distributed, prescribed, and sold in the state must meet organic standards by 2022 to take the pesticides and fertilizers out of the ecosystem. It also establishes labeling, focus on ingredients and content, which we currently don't have. And it would also allow local governments to impose a tax that has to be passed by voters in complying with Prop 218. In addition, it would update the Board of Equalization's estimate for tax revenues from medical marijuana, and it creates, it would not supersede provisions of Measure D as approved by the voters in the city of Los Angeles or any other local measures, and ensures that it maintains local control. Finally, this bill only deals with medical marijuana and does not focus on the legalization of recreational use. The voters will have their say soon enough. In closing, the regulations and programs contained in this bill are nearly 2 decades overdue, and I look forward to continuing our work with colleagues here and over in the Assembly. Madam President, colleagues, I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Senator McGuire, for that brief analysis.
Wow.
Is there any...
The kettle.
Is there any debate or discussion? Senator Morlock.
Thank you, Madam President. We have voted on a lot of bills this week that create new committees, new positions, we're just adding a lot of infrastructure and bureaucracy. So firstly, I want to thank the Senator from Sonoma County for doing some incredible work. This is quite a bit of impressive work. I'm just curious, what I didn't have in my briefing material was sort of like a spreadsheet that would show when these taxes or fees or whatever licensing opportunities, when do we pencil out so that at the end of the day, the department that you're creating is going to be self-sufficient, that the fees equal the cost of employees and infrastructure, et cetera, because we were just adding so much this week that I just want to kind of get a little clarification. So, Madam President, may I ask that question of the Senator?
Senator, will you take a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Without objection. Senator Morlock.
Thank you.
And do want to say thank you to the Senator from Orange County. Good to see you, sir. Very quickly, One of the major problems that we have, not just as a state, but in our local communities, is that we can't recover the costs. So what this would do is allow the new department under the secretary to be able to establish the fee schedule. We are not going to tell the secretary or the governor what those fees should be. It would need to be them doing the research to ensure that they're able to look at full cost recovery. Related to taxes, taxes would have to conform with Proposition 218, and they would have to be voter approved. There could not be an imposed tax on the local level. And then on the local side, it would be imposed by, as far as cost recovery fees, so for example, sheriff's office, code enforcement, or within the planning division, it would be set by the city council or the board of supervisors, not by the state. The state would need to be able to develop what that cost is and full cost recovery for the services offered by the division.
Thank you, Senator. I'm assuming then because it's medical marijuana that it's exempt from sales tax?
That's going to be ultimately, so what this bill would allow is for locals to be able to implement a sales tax per a voter mandate. So what this legislation would allow is a local sales tax on medical if approved by local voters within their jurisdiction.
And then just for clarification, would it fall under the category of tobacco?
It is not under the category of tobacco, as it's a separate category per Prop 215 under medical marijuana.
Great.
And again, I want to make it very clear, we are not taking a stand on recreational use. This only deals with medical marijuana approved by voters in Prop 215.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Is there other debate or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, Senator McGuire asks for an aye vote.
Thank you.
All right. All debate having ceased, Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Allen? Aye. Anderson? No. Bates? No. Bell? Aye. Berryhill? Block? Aye. Canella? Aye. De Leon? Aye. Fuller? No. Gaines? Galgioni? Glazer? Hall? Aye. Hancock? Aye. Hernandez? Aye. Hertzberg? Aye. Hill? Aye. Wisso? Huff? Jackson? Aye. Lada? Aye. Leno? Leva? Aye. Liu? Aye. McGuire? Aye. Mendoza? Aye. Mitchell? Aye. Monning? Aye. Morlock? Morrell? Wynn? No. Nilsson? Pan? Aye. Pavley? Aye. Roth? No. Runner? No. Stone? Vidak? Wachowski? Aye. Wolk? Wolk, aye.
Please call the absent members.
Wesso, aye. Berryhill? Gaines? No. Galgioni? Glazer? Aye. Huff? No. Leno? Morlock? Aye. Morrell? Nilsson? Stone? No. Vidak? No. Berryhill, no.
Ayes.
Morrell, no.
Right. Ayes 25, noes 12. The measure passes. Colleagues, we are now going to go back to motions and resolutions.